Mrs. Murphy, do you have any idea where he might have gone? I asked now. Something really frightened Gary, she said. I think maybe it relates to his job somehow. And to my brother, who's his employer. I can't imagine that he went home to New Jersey, but maybe he did. Maybe Gary went back home. He is impulsive. One of the FBI agents, Marcus Connor, peeked into the kitchen where we were talking. Can I see both of you for a minute? I'm sorry, this will just be for 1 minute, he said to Mrs. Murphy. Connor escorted us down into the basement of the house. Jerry Scorse, Riley, and Kyle Craig from the FBI were already down there, waiting. Scorse held up a pair of Fido Dido socklets. I recognized them from descriptions of what Maggie Rose Dunn had been wearing the day of the kidnapping. Also from visits to the little girl's room, where I'd seen her collection of clothes and trinkets. So, what do you think, Alex? Scorse asked me. I had noticed that whenever things got really weird, he asked for my opinion. Exactly what I said about the sneaker in Washington. He left it for us. He's playing a game now. He wants us to play with him. Chapter 40. The old DuPont Hotel in downtown Wilmington was a convenient place to get some sleep. It had a nice quiet bar, and Sampson and I planned on doing some quiet drinking there. We didn't think we'd have company, but we were surprised when Jesse Flanagan, Klepner, and some of the FBI agents joined us for nightcaps. We were tired and frustrated after the near miss with Gary Saniji Murphy. We drank a lot of hard liquor in a short time. Actually, we got along well. The team. We got loud, played liar's poker, raised some hell in the Tony Delaware room that night. Sampson talked to Jesse Flanagan for a while. He thought she was a good cop, too. The drinking finally tailed down, and we wandered off to find our rooms, which were scattered throughout the spacious DuPont. Jeb Klepner, Jesse, and I climbed the thickly carpeted stairs to our rooms on 2 and 3. The DuPont was a mausoleum at 2:45 in the morning. There wasn't any traffic outside on the main drag through Wilmington. Klepner's room was on the 2nd floor. I'm going to go watch some soft-core pornography, he said as he split off from us. That usually helps me get right to sleep. Sweet dreams, Jesse said. Lobby at 7. Klepner groaned as he trudged down the hallway to his room. Jesse and I climbed the winding flight to the next floor. It was so quiet you could hear the stoplight outside, making clicking noises as it changed from green to yellow to red. I'm still wound tight, I said to her. I can see Saniji Murphy. 2 faces. They're both very distinct in my head. I'm wired too. It's my nature. What would you do if you were home instead of here? Jesse asked. I'd probably go play the piano out on our porch, wake the neighborhood with a little blues. Jesse laughed out loud. We could go back down to the Delaware room. There was an old upright in there. Probably belonged to one of the DuPonts. You play. I'll have one more drink. That bartender left about 10 seconds after we did. He's home in his bed already. We'd reached the DuPont's 3rd floor. There was a gentle bend in the hallway. Ornate signs on the wall listed room numbers in their direction. A few guests had their shoes out to be shined overnight. I'm 311. Jesse pulled a white card key from the pocket of her jacket. I'm in 334. Time to call it a night. Start fresh in the morning. Jesse smiled and she looked into my eyes. For the first time that I could remember, neither of us had anything to say. I took her into my arms and held her gently. We kissed in the hallway. I hadn't kissed anyone like that in a while. I wasn't sure who had started the kiss, actually. You're very beautiful, I whispered as our lips drew apart. The words just came out. Not my best effort, but the truth. Jessie smiled and shook her head. My lips are too puffy and big. I look like I was dropped face first as a kid. You're the good-looking one. You look like Muhammad Ali. Sure I do. After he took too many punches. A few punches, maybe, to add character. Just the right number of hard knocks. Your smile's nice, too. Smile for me, Alex. I kissed those puffy lips again. They were perfect as far as I could tell. There's a lot of myth about black men desiring white women, about some white women wanting to experiment with black men. Jessie Flanagan was a smart, extremely desirable woman. She was somebody I could talk to, somebody I wanted to be around. And there we were, snuggled in each other's arms at around 3 a.m. We'd both had a little too much to drink, but not a lot too much. No myths involved. Just two people, alone, in a strange town, on a very strange night in both of our lives. I wanted to be held by somebody right then. I think Jessie did too. The look in her eyes was sweet and comfortable, but there was also a brittleness that night. There was a network of tiny red veins in the corners of her eyes. Maybe she could still see Soniji Murphy, too. We'd been so close to getting him, only a half step behind this time. I studied Jessie's face in a way I couldn't have before, and never thought that I would. I ran a finger lightly over her cheeks. Her skin was soft and smooth. Her blonde hair was like silk between my fingers. Her perfume was subtle, like wildflowers. A phrase drifted through my head. Don't start anything you can't finish. Well, Alex, Jessie said, as she raised an eyebrow. This is a knotty problem, isn't it? Not for two smart cops like us, I said to her. We took the soft left turn down the hotel hallway and headed toward room 311. Maybe we should think twice about this, I said as we walked. Maybe I already have, Jessie whispered back. Chapter 41. At 1:30 in the morning, Gary Soniji Murphy walked out of a Motel 6 in Reston, Virginia. He caught his reflection in a glass door. The new Gary, the Gary du jour, looked back at him. Black pompadour and a grungy beard, dusty shit-kicker's clothes. He knew he could play this part, put on an old Dixie drawl for as long as he needed to, anyway. Not too long. Don't anybody blink. Gary got into the battered VW and started to drive. He was completely wired. He loved this part of the plan more than he loved his life. He couldn't separate the two anymore. This was the most daring part of the entire adventure. Real high-wire stuff. Why was he so revved, he wondered as his mind drifted. Just because half the police and FBI bastards in the continental USA were out looking for him? Because he'd kidnapped 2 rich brats and one had died? And the other, Maggie Rose? He didn't even want to think about that. What had really happened to her? Darkness slowly changed to a soft gray velvet. He fought the urge to step on the gas and keep it floored. An orangish tinge of morning finally arrived as he drove through Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He stopped at a 7-Eleven in Johnstown. He got out and stretched his legs, checked how he looked in the VW Bug's dangling side view mirror. A scraggly country laborer looked back at him from the mirror. Another Gary, completely. He had all the country hick mannerisms down cold. Modified cowboy walk as if he'd been kicked by a horse, hands in pockets or thumbs in belt loops. Finger comb your hair all the time, spit whenever you get the chance. He took a jolt of high-octane coffee in the convenience store, which was a questionable move. Hard poppy seed roll with extra butter. No morning newspapers were out yet. A dumb shit, stuck-up female clerk in the store waited on him. He wanted to punch her lights out. He spent 5 minutes fantasizing about taking her out right in the middle of the podunk 7-Eleven. Take off the little schoolgirl white blouse, honey. Roll it down to your waist. Okay, now I'm probably going to have to kill you. But maybe not. Talk to me nice and beg me not to. What are you, 21? 20? Use that as your emotional argument. You're too young to die unfulfilled in a 7-Eleven. Gary finally decided to let her live. The amazing thing was that she had no idea how close she'd come to being killed. You have a nice day. Come back soon, she said. You pray I don't. He downed both hot coffees as he continued on through the restaurant. Through the restaurant. Through any people in his way. Through the cheesy Formica tables. Through the walls if he really wanted to. Gary Sinigi Murphy pulled a snub-nosed revolver from under his windbreaker. This was it. The beginning of America's wake-up call. A special performance for all the kiddies and mommies. They were all watching him now. Guns, they understood. Wake the fuck up, he shouted inside the McDonald's dining room. Hot coffee. Coming through, you all. Wake up and smell it. That man has a gun, said one of the rocket scientists, eating a dripping Big Mac. Amazing that he could see through the greasy fog rising from his food. Gary faced the room with the revolver drawn. No one leaves this room, he bellowed. You awake now? Are you people awake? Gary Sinigi Murphy called out. I think so. I think you're all with the program now. I'm in charge, so everybody stop, look, and listen. Gary fired a round into the face of a burger-chomping patron. The man clutched his forehead and wheeled heavily off his chair onto the floor. Now that got everybody's attention. Real gun, real bullets, real life. A black woman screamed and she tried to run by Sinigi. He leveled her with a gun butt to the head. It was a really cool move, he thought. Good Steven Seagal shit. I am Gary Sinigi. I am himself. Is that a mind blower or what? You're in the presence of the world-famous kidnapper. This is like a free-for-nothing demonstration, so watch closely. You might learn something. Gary Sinigi has been places. He's seen things you'll never see in your life. Trust me on that one. He sipped the last of his McCoffee, and over the rim of his cup watched the fast food fans quiver. This, he finally said in a thoughtful manner, is what they call a dangerous hostage situation. Ronald McDonald's been kidnapped, folks. You're now officially part of history. Chapter 9. At 25 minutes past 10, well within the range he'd set during his dry runs from Washington, Gary Sinigi turned his van onto an unmarked drive. The side road was badly potholed and densely overgrown with weeds. A blackberry bramble was on either shoulder. Less than 50 yards in from the main highway, he couldn't see anything but the dirt road and a mess of overhanging bushes. No one could see his van from the highway. The van bumped along past a ramshackle, faded white farmhouse. The building looked as if it were shrinking, collapsing right back into its foundation. No more than 40 yards past the house was what remained of an equally run-down storage barn. Sinigi drove the van inside. He'd done it. He'd pulled it off. A black 1985 Saab was parked in the barn. Unlike the rest of the deserted farm, the barn had a lived-in feel. It had a dirt floor. Cheesecloth was taped over 3 broken windows in the hayloft. There were no rusting tractors or other farm machinery. The barn had the smell of damp earth and gasoline. Gary Sinigi pulled 2 Cokes from a cooler on the passenger seat. He polished off both sodas, letting out a satisfied belch after downing the second cold one. "Either of you guys want a Coke?" he yelled out to the drugged, comatose children. No? Okay.